shout out to our good homie Jordan Sheraton for having Cornel West on his show to talk about this, and kind of ask him about what he described as a contentious interview. I would say it was like a scolding, right? It was like it was weird, and the way that Cornel West articulates it here, I think obviously does a great job at conveying exactly why it was unacceptable to him. But I also just think that there's the further thing that you could say, which is that if you're a white guy with a multi-million-dollar home, you probably shouldn't talk to a black liberation theologian about how you really just need to put down the white supremacy stuff and start looking out for poor white folks in the South. It's like, no, bro, you don't want to know what those poor white folks in the South have thought about me my whole fucking life. Why would I ever put them fucking ahead of the liberation of this entire group of people that he's advocated for his whole life?
No, we know. I mean, Brother Jimmy's anti-racist in his sensibilities and so forth. There's no doubt about that. He's been very helpful to a whole host of black folk. As you could tell, I didn't like his attitude at all. I didn't like his tone. Over time, we started with a certain respect, but it tended to decline after that. And I don't have any patience for the most folk. Folk who just kind of pontificate to tell you, I'm the coach, I'm the advisor, this is what you ought to do. Who's advising you? Well, I think for myself, but I shouldn't have to say that because you think for yourself. Blah, 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 blah. But I use the Watson example as an extreme example because we know white supremacy cuts so deep that you have a choice of either conforming or hitting it head on with your class politics. You don't give up on class just because you're talking about white supremacy. And if you talk about white supremacy or male supremacy or transphobia or homophobia just to identity politics, then you're missing the point. Identity politics is a neoliberal project that's a class war against poor and working people. But if you have a class-informed, class-written politics that hits white supremacy head on, male supremacy head on, that's not narrow identity politics. That's what it is to be a decent and moral person concerned about structures of domination. And white supremacy deeply overlaps with forms of patriarchy and forms of capitalist exploitation of workers and so forth. But it also has its own relative autonomy too. And so when he says, well, you can't, you got to talk only about economic issues. That's why Bernie took off. And that's the only way you're going to take off. And then in the end, just say, I'm a loser. I said, well, okay, brother, you got too far at that point. Wait. I know we're supposed to be on the same side here, but if you can talk about Tucker Park, you can talk about Brother Tucker, and Tucker, when he talks about George Floyd, first thing he talks about is his record. Well, what about the suffering, brother? What about the police committing this vicious lynching and crime? So Tucker might have some populist dimensions. Wonderful. Love Tucker. Been to Africa with it. But if he was going to look at these various cases, same would be true with trans.
Did you know about that, Gavin? This was potentially the most shocking reveal, is that Cornel West went to Africa with Tucker Carlson. Bro, this ain't what I want to hear from a Green Party candidate, but I hope you guys did good work together.
Yeah, why the fuck? I don't know what the context for that was. I don't know if they literally went together or if they just happened to be on the same trip.
I'm going to tell myself that, yeah. Love Tucker. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't love Tucker. I could have no less love for Tucker than I do.
Yeah, and that is one criticism I have of Cornel West. Like, I don't have a problem with him saying like brother Trump or brother Biden. Some people have an issue with that, right? They're like, don't call these establishment politicians like brother, right? I don't have a problem with that because I think it shows like people that he really views us all as members of the human race and we're all each other's siblings and like all that stuff. No matter how morally compromised you are, you're still a human being and you're still a member of the human race, right? I'm fine with that. What I do have an issue with though is when he's like has to make these comments like I don't think Jimmy Dore is racist. Like clearly he is. I love Tucker Carlson. Why the fuck do you love Tucker Carlson? Like why do you got to add those like compliments in there when they're completely undeserved?
Tiana's not buying it. She says there's no way that's true. I hope you're
But yeah, let's take a couple more seconds of this in.
Women, if he looks at them and can't identify what they're suffering, I've got a critique and an indictment. He said, well, you'll never win. You never win. Well, what do you mean by winning here? If winning is on the way to Tom Watson in his latter stage, I'm not headed there. Ever. And of course, I will never ask for anybody's permission, white, man, whatever they are, as to whether I ought to be raising my voice against vicious forms of white supremacy. And it's not simply because of skin pigmentation.
Based as fuck. But yeah, I mean, I think that Cornel West was probably really shocked after that exchange with Jimmy Dore. I think that obviously it's been obvious for who have covered Jimmy for a long time, that he's evolved into just a right-wing fucking talking point machine, and that he wants to be the lefty guy that Tucker can have on, or the lefty guy that like so and so right winger can have on, to be like, oh, before the left got so crazy, this is what we were talking about. Honestly, guys, the real thing the left should do is that we should just become the Nazi party, whereas we should support national infrastructure building, but we should throw every single minority under the bus. That's essentially Jimmy's sales pitch at this point. He's literally like giving you a nationalist, socialist, fucking Nazi ass policy prescription, right? Like, no, don't talk about white supremacy. Like, oh, you only care about trans people. Accusing Dr. West of not caring about the fucking 41% of black businesses that closed during COVID, et cetera, right? I think that it's obvious to us, but I think that was the first time where it became obvious to Cornel West, and I'm wondering how that'll impact Jimmy in the future. Are we still going to see guys like Chris Hedges go on there and talk about how he's the only last remaining brave truth teller, right? Or are we going to start to see, less and less of that, and then the lefties that are going on there are like Max Blumenthal, and dudes that, they're definitely never going to challenge any Republican or say anything that you're like now, rabidly right-wing base wants to hear.
Bro, watch this shit. This is fucking wild. Here's Jimmy talking with what's his face from the couch, Mr. Potato Head from the couch.
Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, they're having a quite an enlightened discussion over here about the topic of white supremacy. Get ready for this, guys.
Yes. In identity politics, it wants us to think of ourselves as separate. It doesn't want us to think as a collective. And that's where all this is coming from right now. And that's why the Democrats and Bank of America have embraced talking about white supremacy. Yeah. Not because they care about it and are going to do anything about it, but because they know it's a way to manipulate us and keep us separate. Okay. And again, if it's just stunning to me how few people can tell the difference between someone trying to encourage someone to be better because they support their platform and someone criticizing someone and trying to knock them down. I'm not trying to knock down Cornel West one bit. I'm trying to help Cornel West have a more coherent strategy that actually can do damage to the establishment.
Pause this.
And have
Jimmy has his head so far up his ass, he must have only eaten his own shit for the last week. This is absolutely ridiculous. To think that you're in a position to tell this man who is a fucking 100 to 1 smarter than you by every measurable metric, more successful than you by every measurable metric, and you're gonna just sit there and lecture him and tell him, hey, actually, man, you've devoted your whole life to untangling the vicious entwinement of capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, etc. But I want you to forget all about that, because I actually know what's best. And my audience really wants you to say that you don't think racism is real, and that they're only smearing people like Tucker Carlson with claims of racism because he's a truth teller. And why don't you adopt that model? It's been really successful for all the guys that started off on Fox News.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking crazy. Oh my God. Get a load of this though.
And wield power. That's what I'm trying to do. It's obvious that's what I'm trying to do. And the people who don't.
By the way, never had a single fucking critical word about the People's Party or Nick Brana when there were legitimate, valid accusations and all kinds of stories coming out from that debacle. Jimmy Dore never criticized it. And the people that were being critical, he called them ops. He said they were Democratic Party ops who were just trying to tear down the third party movement because they were being critical of his friend Nick Brana. Now there's actually a party, like an actual candidate running in an actual party on actual ballots, and all this motherfucker has to do is tear him down, disrespect him. But yeah, listen to this.
See that I think are just that bad faith actors. Just like Cornel West bad faith attacked me, just the way he's been bad faith attacked. It's crazy that the left can't get their game together, especially after 8 years of Barack Obama doing right-wing policies, and now after 3 years of Joe Biden being an unbelievable fascist, crushing workers' unions. Anyway, I don't have much more time to talk about this today.
Can we pause this one more time? This is how you know Jimmy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Crushing worker unions. He's going to mention the rail strike. That's the one thing that he can talk about because it happened like 8 months ago, and that was the last time he read his lines. He doesn't know anything about Joe Biden's policy. I'm going to think Joe Biden is like the most based guy ever. But again, you guys are just dumb. You do not understand practice. Jimmy does not understand that. Like, he wants to talk about union guys and pay lip service to labor. I just had a call for a fucking hour today with one of my guys whose full-time job is reporting on labor. Okay, and we talked about a lot of the extreme accomplishments that have happened under the NLRB under Joe Biden, right? He mentioned today that that in the build-up to the World Cup coming to Kansas City, that they're going to use this new decision that basically makes it way harder for jobs to union bust, and that if they do any illegal tactics, then they have to immediately recognize the union and begin negotiating, right? These are big deals. And again, yes, it was wrong in my opinion of Joe Biden to break the rail strike. I mean, there were negotiations that occurred with the Biden administration and the rail workers after the fact. However, I still think it breaches on your right to protest, your right to organize, and I did not agree with that. But to have him just use it as like a fucking throwaway, that's the other thing, guys. He doesn't mention Donald Trump because he doesn't want to say anything bad about Donald Trump, right? And then he goes and he calls it like saying that Joe Biden's out here trying to break unions, bro. Union fucking density, and also the reason that everybody says union density is because for the first time in fucking forever, union membership is actually going up. So they say, oh, union density is going down because most of the jobs that are being created aren't unionized, right? But by every metric in the next 4 or 5 years, as a result of the policies that were implemented into the Biden administration, there will be a continued increase in union density across the country. And yeah, it's just dishonest to say that that's not the case. I can say that that's not adequate enough and that there could be way more union density under another president. But if you're comparing that to Joe Biden, to Donald Trump, and your concern is the union workers, it's just completely disingenuous, and it's just revealing that he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. He never does have any idea what he's talking about, guys. Even when he's asking the most like bare bones questions, he's reading from a script. He doesn't write any of this shit. He pays somebody, makes them sign what's it called, a non-disclosure agreement, right? So he can treat them like shit, get drunk, or fucking like, use their creative labor to build his nest egg.
Yep.
Do you want to say anything, Craig?
Just really quickly, too. The conversation after Dr. Cornel West was so important. Even Kurt said, I don't even know what that means. And I think it's okay when you talk about white supremacy for us to have conversations.
Kurt Metzger, Jimmy Dore's white co-host, apparently said he doesn't know what white supremacy means. How the fuck do you not know what? Like, it's pretty obvious. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Conversations about that, and I'm willing to sit down with RBN and Nico House and be educated on what they think it means today. But if you have to
those
bring
are
that
the people
dictionary,
that paused this. The Nico House, Ron DeSantis, fucking #1 soldier. Are you fucking kidding me? These guys are literally they're not even like, to say that they're dumb. It's not exactly dumbness, right? It's the fact that they know exactly how to play all of those 1.24 million subscribers like a fucking fiddle. And the audience base of Jimmy Dore is so dumb. Guys, I don't even say this lightly because I don't like to bash people that aren't doing this professionally. But the regular viewership of Jimmy Dore, I think, is probably some of the lowest IQ individuals that have figured out how to make YouTube work.
Yep.
And that's just the sad reality of it. He is pandering to people who are fucking dumb and are deeply misled and are deeply conspiratorially minded.
Yep. And also, listen to how fucking racist this is, by the way. We've been telling you guys that like people like Jimmy Dore just use the folks at RBN as like tokens to shield themselves from accusations of bigotry and racism. But it basically just comes out in a pure admission here from Mr. Potato Head.
After Dr. Cornel West was so important, even Kurt said, I don't even know what that means. And I think it's okay when you talk about white supremacy for us to have conversations about that. And I'm willing to sit down with RBN and Nico House and be educated on what
the two black channels that he knows of that haven't completely distanced themselves from the Jimmy Dore sphere because they're just that shameless, and they'll throw, anyway. Yeah, they'll refuse to admit that Jimmy Dore is obviously a racist, a disgusting bigot, because of the fact that they're grifting off of his audience and they're riding his coattails. So they'll call everyone else racist. They'll criticize everyone else endlessly for anything. But Jimmy Dore can lecture Dr. West. He can disrespect Dr. West to his face. He can tell Dr. West not to discuss racism and white supremacy, and they'll sit there and defend Jimmy. They won't defend Dr. West. They choose fucking Jimmy Dore over Dr. West. And then this is how they're discussed on his show.
And then just compare this. Oh, I want him to do better, blah, blah, blah. Compare this to the RFKJ interview where he just pats him on the balls a few times. RFKJ says, no, I don't believe in Medicare for all, and I don't really believe in a public option. Oh, and I also think that we should definitely keep giving more money to Israel. And Jimmy doesn't cut him off, and Jimmy doesn't like fucking talk down to him and demean him and tell him that, oh, you know, if you keep doing this, then you know, it's going to really seriously invalidate you, right? But because Jimmy knows his audience is fucking in love with RFKJ, so he has to come up with a way where he can be the mediator, right? So he's like, oh, why don't you debate my good friend Max Blumenthal on this? That way, if it goes poorly, I could say, I really like Max, but yeah, I just think everybody should smooth it all. These guys are really both on the same team. That's what Jimmy wants to be able to do. Anyway, doesn't have any interest in doing that with Cornel West, Dr. West. But he does have it with a raving lunatic anti-vaxxer, go fucking figure, who doesn't believe in any of the progressive policies that Jimmy says are his line in the sand.
Yeah, and am I wrong for thinking this is crazy? They're literally admitting like, oh yeah, we'll sit down with the two black channels that still take us seriously for them to explain what white supremacy and racism are to us. But then we'll just conveniently forget everything that was told to us the next time, you know, we need to appease a right-wing audience or pander to Trump supporters. That's what this is. They're using them as fucking tokens and shields, and they'll have them on and they'll let them explain what white supremacy is. And they'll say, oh yeah, that is a good point. Right. Great. Now go back and keep defending me constantly. And then I'll forget everything you said, completely ignore this analysis, completely, you know, fail to call out anyone like, you know, Tucker Carlson for being a white supremacist. As Cornel West said, Tucker Carlson routinely smears George Floyd. This is what we're dealing with. And I just can't believe he made that admission on the show.
They think it means today, but if you have to
chime in.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think at this point they know who they're catering to, bro. So they admit that on the show just because that's what their fucking audience wants to hear. They want to see other white people say that racism isn't a problem in this country. They want them to say that it's like, did you see that ridiculous Ian Miles Chong tweet that Elon Musk liked? And it was like talking about how like fucking, I don't know, like racism isn't real for like fucking adult people. And it's actually like white people who are the victims of race. This is the kind of audience that they're fucking telling that shit to.
Yep.
I think it's okay when you talk about white supremacy for us to have conversations about that. And I'm willing to sit down with RBN and Nico House and be educated on what they think it means today. But if you have to bring that dictionary, you need elevator pitches over here. This is a presidential campaign. Mm-hmm. And the one area I think that you shouldn't have had to apologize, but you did, was when Cornel West kept on saying, I can think for myself. You're supposed to have a presidential campaign that's supposed to have a plan in place to go after people across party lines. And whether you like the People's Party or not, since he's moved away.
That's actually not true. This is how you know he has absolutely the like most shallow, but also just dumb. This guy's not smart. Okay, he's not very bright. He's going to tell you that an effective presidential strategy is to not run as a Democrat or a Republican or a Green, but to run as a presidential candidate for everybody. I would ask Mr. Potato Head to tell me one example of that being at all successful. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And we're still in the, like, we're not, either way. This is so fucking dumb. And the People's Party. Well, he did move away from the People's Party, and, you know, they had the right strategy. Now he's with the woke Green Party. It's so fucking dumb, bro. It's so Imagine pretending to care about the third party movement and then scolding Cornel West for moving from a non-existent fake third party with no ballot access to a legitimate third party with like 45 state ballot. Imagine being mad about that and still claiming to actually give a shit about the third party goal. Obviously, these people don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. And this dude's not even a leftist. This dude is not, he doesn't even, obviously no one on the Jimmy Dore Show is a leftist, but this dude doesn't even pretend to be a leftist. This dude's a libertarian. I think he basically just like fully admits that he's a fucking libertarian now. So why are you even commenting on this? Obviously, they're not talking about white supremacy over at the fucking Libertarian Party convention. They're talking about, you know, sending Nina Turner to go pick crops. That's what your fucking party talks about, bro. But on the Green Party side, on the left, yeah, we actually do care about sticking up for marginalized people. We actually do care about addressing societal inequality, like fucking white supremacy, which this country was founded on. Like, how is this not part of your analysis?
Yeah, it's giving away the game, bro. It's giving away the game. And at this point, like, there are some of these fuckers. I see them in our chat. I've been banning all of them because I don't want to fucking see you or hear any of your thoughts. Because I think that you're pathetic and worthless. And I mean that to every last one of you Jimmy Dore stands. It's fucking poisoning our chat right now. But I also just believe that you're too criminally dumb to be reached. And I think that at this point, it's more just a matter of like, how much fun can we have dogpiling on the fact that some people legitimately still believe that Jimmy Dore is somehow a leftist. It's like a textbook fucking case study in like self-delusion and also like a willingness to be manipulated by anybody with a platform.